This week, a wild discovery beneath a Brooklyn synagogue.
It's immensely painful to all of us in the community.
Plus, a murder at one of the city's migrant shelters. And the fentanyl crisis grips Staten Island.
We are in the throes of a 5-alarm raging fire here.
Right now, Fox 5's Crime in the City. Here are some of the crimes from across the 5 boroughs. We begin this week in Brooklyn, where a secret tunnel found beneath a synagogue in Crown Heights leads to an all-out brawl.
Well, now to an update on that illegal tunnel that was found below a Brooklyn synagogue.
The city has issued vacate order for multiple buildings, citing safety concerns.
All right, Fox 5's Antoine Lewis takes a closer look at the damage and how the city's responding.
The Department of Buildings has now posted a vacate order just days after a series of tunnels were discovered under several buildings adjoining to the sacred site for the Chabad Lubavitch Orthodox Jewish sect. Rabbi Mati Seligson says it has been a stressful week.
Whether it was to gain access or expand the footprint of the synagogue, it was dangerous.
This video was posted on Instagram by crownheights.info. Authorities say a group of Jewish men with a long simmering disagreement dug the tunnels in an effort to break into the synagogue. Police took several men into custody. Synagogue officials would not get into the origins of the disagreement.
Young agitators disrupted those repairs, essentially desecrated the synagogue and destroyed the wall of the synagogue.
Repairs being done to the synagogue were temporarily halted after the tunnels were discovered this week. By Thursday afternoon, crews had resumed their repair work. The NYPD stood patrol on the outside of the buildings involved, as well as blocked off the sidewalk to allow the workers to continue with no outside interference, in particular from any of the accused tunnel diggers or their friends. Which for Rabbi Seligson is tough to comprehend. He says given the amount of hate facing the Jewish community at large, to have to accept vandalism coming from within his own community is disheartening.
It's immensely painful to all of us in the community. It's immensely painful to the Jewish people worldwide, and it's immensely painful to society. This is one of the most recognizable Jewish buildings in the world, and for this to happen here really strikes deep in everyone's hearts.
Over on Randall's Island, a dispute at one of the city's migrant shelters ends in murder.
Migrants are raising safety concerns after a man was stabbed to death at the migrant shelter on Randall's Island.
Now, 2 other migrants were arrested in a separate incident. Fox 5's Stephanie Bertini has more on this.
A police presence outside the migrant shelter on Randall's Island isn't helping some feel safer after a fatal stabbing. When I returned, the first thing I heard, the comments they were saying was a murder, says this asylum seeker from Venezuela who has been staying here for about a month. ¿Tú tienes miedo? I asked if she's afraid. She responded every day because here it's not safe. The NYPD responded to a 911 call just after 7:30 Saturday evening. Police say a man in his 20s was stabbed in the chest. He was taken to a hospital where he died. A male suspect is in police custody. Investigators say it started with a dispute inside the cafeteria at the shelter. According to officials, over 68,300 asylum seekers are in New York City shelters. The numbers evidence of New York City's ongoing migrant crisis. Shelters have been operating at capacity. So much so, city-imposed limits remain on shelter stays. 30 days for singles and 60 days for families. The former St. Bridget's School on the Lower East Side now functions as a shelter reentry facility. This is where migrants go to be assigned to a new shelter once their stay is up. Police were called after an altercation this weekend. It all started, according to witnesses, with someone cutting the line. They don't respect the line. They don't want to wait in the line, so that's why the problem, he said. The NYPD says it led to 2 officers sustaining minor injuries and 2 migrants getting arrested. They are now facing a string of charges, including resisting arrest. Mayor Adams recently commented about migrants committing crimes in the city.
You place a person in an environment where they can't work, can't provide for themselves, they have to just sit around all day. That's not a good scenario.
The overwhelming majority of migrants in our care came to our city in search of a better life and the American dream. The small number of those disrupting that journey for the rest of the migrants in our care by acting violently will face enforcement to the fullest extent of the law. According to officials, more than 160,000 migrants have come to New York City since last spring. As the surge continues with no end in sight, the question is, will these incidents be on the rise?
Next, officials sounding the alarm on Staten Island as fentanyl overdoses in the borough soar.
A plea tonight from one of New York City's top prosecutors, a plea he says he's making to save lives.
We are in the throes of a five-alarm raging fire here when it comes to the fentanyl opioid epidemic.
Richmond County District Attorney Michael McMahon is among the lawmakers calling on Governor Hochul to declare a state of emergency to tackle the alarming number of fatal fentanyl overdoses. This after a report from the Staten Island Fentanyl Task Force revealed there were 155 fatal doses in the borough in 2023. That number has been steadily rising since 2016, a total of 830 victims since that year.
While we are at this very meeting, 2 New York State residents will die. 30 people will overdose in 2 hours.
Authorities say that opioid fentanyl, often combined with other substances like cocaine and alcohol, account for more than 80% of overdoses on Staten Island and citywide. McMahon standing with doctors and healthcare providers this week, all of whom are in agreement of declaring a public health emergency. McMahon, along with Borough President Vito Fossella, have voiced their frustrations over the governor's response to the opioid epidemic, claiming her task force did not include community members, elected officials, or family members affected by drug abuse and overdose.
Fentanyl is 50 to 200 times stronger than morphine. Using it one time can lead to death.
We have not made the kind of investment in will, investment in resources, investment in political will to actually make a dent in what we've been doing.
At least 8 other states have already declared a state of emergency over the opioid crisis, including Florida, Maryland, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania. The district attorney says the governor doesn't think his borough needs additional help.
Now we head to Queens, where police are looking for the suspect in a heinous assault in Elmhurst.
Police are looking for your help in trying to find a man wanted for a sex assault and robbery in Queens. Police say it happened about 12:30 Saturday morning. A man approached a woman. She's 45 years old. She was walking near Northern Boulevard and 110th Street. The man pulled out a knife on the woman, dragged her into an alley where he robbed her of her jewelry and headphones before sexually assaulting her. The man was last seen running southbound on 109th Street. Do you have any information who this guy is? If you do, please call Crime Stoppers.
And finally, back in Brooklyn, the search is on for the man behind an act of hate in the subway.
Police also need your help capturing the man they say defaced a subway pillar with anti-LGBTQ statement. Now, this happened at the Grand Army Plaza station on December 19th. That suspect then boarded a Brooklyn-bound 2 train and exited at Church Avenue. If you have any information, you know what to do. Do the right thing. Call Crime Stoppers at number 800-577-TIPS.